Week 4 is mostly in the books, and there were certainly some performances that we need to be panicking about. Let's talk about them, figure out how high our panic level should be, and what we can do going forward. Let's start with the Thursday night game, and if you were one of the 29% of people that actually started David Montgomery, you probably felt great. But if you were one of the 90% of people that started Jahmyr Gibbs, not so much. What is going on in Detroit? He is getting the DeAndre Swift treatment. 38% of the snaps. It's like they traded DeAndre Swift and then drafted DeAndre Swift. Look, we knew he wasn't going to score touchdowns. We talked about it. We said he's not going to get goal line usage. He's not that kind of back. But we thought he would at least get like a 50% snap share here, get some usage in the passing game. It just isn't happening for him. Maybe it will as the season goes on, but this is 4 weeks now. We got to start getting concerned. I got to put the panic level at least a moderate level. And if you were one of the 71% of people that started Aaron Jones, it was even worse for you. 2 fantasy points. I mean, I know he was coming off an injury, but I don't even think that was it. This game just got away from the Packers so fast. There was nothing they could do. They were forced into just throwing the ball. They couldn't run. The offensive line could not block this Detroit front. Better days will be ahead for Aaron Jones. I'm going to put the panic level low on Aaron Jones. And then we had a London game between Atlanta and Jacksonville, and the Atlanta Falcons tight end finally had a big game. But it wasn't Kyle Pitts, it was Jonnu Smith. That's right, Jonnu Smith over 90 yards receiving. The number 1 receiver on this team. What is going on? Panic level has to be through the roof on Kyle Pitts. He's definitely not startable, and I would say even in shallower leagues, he might be droppable. Now, Drake London did save his day with a touchdown, but outside of that, did not do a whole lot. 2 catches. I mean, he had 7 targets, but who cares when Desmond Ridder is throwing you the ball and none of your targets are even catchable? Drake London is going to be a very frustrating, flex wide receiver 3 type that you're never going to feel good about starting. You're always just going to hope he finds the end zone. He could always kill you on any given week. I mean, this Falcons offense outside of Bijan Robinson is pretty much full-fledged panic mode. And then on the other side, it started great for Calvin Ridley. A 30-yard touchdown in the first quarter. Looked like it would be a big Calvin Ridley game, but then only 1 more target the entire game. Christian Kirk had a monster game. Evan Engram had a monster game. I know Calvin Ridley faced some tough coverage, but you're the number 1 wide receiver. You're going to face tough coverage. This is now 3 weeks in a row where Christian Kirk has outproduced Calvin Ridley after that big week 1 game. I'm not going to put the panic level high on Calvin Ridley, but certainly we've got to be starting to panic a little bit on Calvin Ridley. Moving on to Sunday, starting off with Pittsburgh versus Houston. As if going 3 catches for 25 yards wasn't bad enough for George Pickens, he might have lost Kenny Pickett for at least next week. He did leave with some sort of knee injury, not sure the severity. If he's out next week, that means we're looking at Mitch Trubisky. I mean, these guys barely came through against Houston. There is no way we can trust this Steelers offense with Mitch Trubisky, even with Kenny Pickett. These guys are hard to trust right now. This whole Steelers offense panic level sky high. And then just when it seemed like Tank Dell was an auto start, he took a massive backseat to Nico Collins. But this is what you're going to get in this offense. Some weeks it's going to be Nico with a big game. Some weeks it might be Tank Dell with a big game. Some weeks they might both have big games. Some weeks neither might have big games. That's just what you're going to get. You start one, you take your medicine. There's no panic here. And it was nice to see Dameon Pierce at least have a decent real-life game, even if it once again didn't result in fantasy points. Minnesota versus Carolina, and Justin Jefferson continues to prove the doubters wrong that yes, he actually can score touchdowns, and he's an absolute stud, but he did it at the expense of Jordan Addison, who did nothing this week, a total goose egg. I thought Jordan Addison could have a nice game, but look, Kirk Cousins was awful. He only threw for 139 yards in this game. When your quarterback's only throwing for 139 yards, there's not a lot to go around. Not panicking on Jordan Addison. He's going to be better going forward. And then Bryce Young predictably lowered the ceiling of all of his pass catchers in a smash spot. Really liked this passing attack when I thought it was Andy Dalton. Not so much when it was Bryce Young. Adam Thielen maybe is a decent floor play in PPR, but that's about it for as long as Bryce Young is starting. This passing attack just not going to be fantasy relevant with Bryce Young. And then we were told Miles Sanders' groin was fine, but I really don't think it was fine, as Chuba Hubbard had 1 more carry than him in this game, and it wasn't like Chuba Hubbard was lighting it up or anything. I really think Miles Sanders was far from 100%. Probably should not have trusted him as much as I did, even though the matchup was great. Lesson learned there. Hopefully he gets some full practices in this week, and we can feel better about him. going into week 5, but I'm not panicking on Miles Sanders because he let down coming off an injury against the Vikings. Tampa Bay versus New Orleans, and Baker Mayfield somehow had 3 touchdowns, but none of them went to anybody that was really fantasy relevant, and Mike Evans did leave this game with a hamstring injury. That will be something to watch. On the Saints side, I mean, credit to Derek Carr for playing, but he probably shouldn't have. He could not throw it down the field at all. I mean, Alvin Kamara, 13 catches for 33 yards. You know what the lowest amount of yards in NFL history was for a guy with 13 catches prior to this game? 71. He got 33. Yeah, Derek Carr should not have been playing in this game. And of course, all those dump offs to Alvin Kamara that did absolutely nothing came at the expense of Chris Olave because Derek Carr couldn't throw it more than 5 yards. But we're not panicking on Chris Olave. We got to hope the Saints do the right thing this week. And if Derek Carr isn't 100%, just put Jameis Winston in, please. Rams versus Colts. And, I got a lot of questions about Puka Nacua. Like, should I even flex this guy? Should I flex him or Chris Godwin? Crazy questions. But I'm glad to see that Puka Mania is back, at least for another week. And it's also good to see that Anthony Richardson picked up right where he left off before he got concussed in week 2. An absolute monster. He's going to be great this year. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of Michael Pittman. Only 1 catch in this game on 5 targets. But I still like Michael Pittman going forward. Everybody has down games. I'm not panicking here. And then there's the Bengals, who were in a smash spot against Tennessee, and instead they got smashed. And I don't know what to do with Joe Burrow. What are the Bengals going to do with Joe Burrow? Is it the calf? Is it something else? Are you going to bench your franchise quarterback that you just gave a ton of money right now to let him get healthy? They've got to do something because Joe Burrow looks lost out there, looks absolutely terrible, and he's bringing down this entire Bengals offense with him. T. Higgins left this game with a rib injury. Jamar Chase complaining. I still think when Joe Burrow gets healthy, they're going to get better, but for the meantime, panic level has to be super high on this offense. And then on the Titans side, Derrick Henry with a big bounce back, 122-yard, 1 touchdown game, so you guys can relax now. And DeAndre Hopkins continues to be just a floor play, as he probably will be all year. Baltimore versus Cleveland, it was great to see Mark Andrews bounce back with a big game. He's now had 2 really good games and 1 down game, so we can relax on Mark Andrews. He's a stud tight end going forward. On the Browns side, you can't panic here. Deshaun Watson was out. Dorian Thompson looked horrible. Browns couldn't get anything going. You got to just chalk this up to one of those games and move on. Then we had Denver versus Chicago, and you know what the cure is for bad QB play? Bad defenses, because Russell Wilson came out and threw 3 touchdowns, and Justin Fields threw 4 touchdowns. Unfortunately, Russell Wilson's good day did not translate to any of the receivers, as none of the Broncos receivers really had a big day. And running back Javonte Williams left this game with the hip injury as well. And you may want to add Jaleel McLaughlin, or maybe you watched the Beat the Breakouts video and you already have him. On the Bears side, welcome back DJ Moore. Will it continue? We'll see, but you got to be encouraged by what you saw, and they have a great stretch of upcoming games. You got to be feeling better about DJ Moore and Justin Fields, at least in the short term. Miami versus Buffalo was supposed to be the shootout of the week, and instead it was one of the blowouts of the week. I mean, we knew Miami coming off a 70-point game was going to be primed for a letdown. Not to mention they were going against a very good Buffalo defense. And Buffalo came through. They shut down every Miami player not named Devon Achane, who might actually be an every week start going forward now. And Buffalo went completely ham in this game. Even James Cook got a touchdown. If you started the Bills player, you probably did pretty well this week. Unless, of course, you started the Bills tight end. You can probably drop either of those guys. Washington versus Philly, and Sam Howell is like an enigma. One week he looks like he doesn't belong in the NFL, and then the next week he looks like a world beater against the Philadelphia Eagles defense on the road. Who knows what we're going to get from Sam Howell week to week, but he gets the Bears in week 5, so you got to feel at least pretty good about him. And then on the Eagles side, everyone looked pretty good, except Dallas Goedert, who continues to struggle and looks like one of the biggest busts in fantasy drafts this year. He only has 13 catches for 88 yards in 4 games. I hesitate to say he's droppable, but he might be droppable. New England took on Dallas, and Mac Jones was bad. Okay, that's being nice. He was horrible. He got benched for Bailey Zappi, but it's okay. You didn't actually start Mac Jones, right? But you may have started Ramondre Stevenson, and those reports of Zeke getting starter reps were totally false. It didn't really matter because Ramondre Stevenson was awful, and he's been pretty bad all year, honestly. He's getting the volume, but not doing much with it, and not catching a ton of passes either. This is now 4 games of underwhelming performances for Ramondre Stevenson. It doesn't look like Bill O'Brien is saving this offense. Panic level's got to be pretty high on Ramondre Stevenson right now. Then on the Cowboys side, they continue to be in these games where they don't have to do much offensively, and when they get in the red zone near the goal line, they find ways to shoot themselves in the foot. But Tony Pollard continues to get the usage, just not the results. Not worried about him, and I'm not worried about Dak Prescott either. Raiders took on the Chargers, and look, Aiden O'Connell played about as well as you could expect for a guy making his first career start on the road. Although he did bring down the value of these pass catchers. I mean, Devontae Adams was okay, but predictably, Jacoby Myers didn't do a whole lot. We got to just hope Jimmy G is back next week. Josh Jacobs had that bounce back game we were looking for, but not really in the way we expected. Still only had 58 yards on 17 carries, did score a touchdown, but he caught 8 passes. Not sure we can bank on that going forward, but at least if you have Josh Jacobs, you're feeling better today than you did the previous 3 weeks when he was killing you. And the Chargers offense didn't really explode against this Raiders defense the way we expected, but I mean, Keenan Allen did score and Palmer had a nice game, I guess. There's really no need to panic here. Unless this Justin Herbert finger injury is serious, it's on his non-throwing hand. Let's hope he's okay. And then finally, we had Arizona versus San Francisco. And look, you got to give credit to this Arizona Cardinals team. Josh Dobbs, the whole team, the defense, they are putting up a fight, but they were completely overmatched by San Francisco. As for the 49ers, I mean, Debo didn't do much coming off that injury. Looked like more of a decoy this week. Not ready to panic on Debo after one bad game. I may be ready to panic on George Kittle, who has yet to top 30 yards in 3 of 4 games, and the only time he did was when Brandon Ayuk was out. George Kittle, Dallas Goedert, and Kyle Pitts looking like the 3 biggest busts at tight end right now. Panic level has to be high. And if you face Christian McCaffrey this week,